This was actually something that one of you guys brought to my attention, and it is a makeup brand that is allegedly using AI art in their packaging and processes. Also, again, to address the elephant in the room, I wanted to start filming. I literally did my makeup and the power went out for the second time at my family home today. So that's why the lighting looks bad because I have no power, but getting into the video. So the brand name is Ensley Rain _ cosmetics. This is their Instagram handle. They go by Ensley Rain. And again, look, me making this video talking about AI art and the processes, I don't want you guys to send hate to the brand. It's more of a discussion piece on the ethics of AI art and the usage of it in processes like such in a small business. But Ensley Rain is a small makeup brand in which they have makeup. They seem to be known for very glittery, very highly pigmented palettes, and the color payoff looks really good. Like when I'm looking through their makeup and stuff like that on their page, it looks gorgeous, and it makes me really sad because I love purchasing from small businesses. I own a lot of makeup from small makeup brands. The color payoff on their palettes looks so good. And I, as a consumer, would have honestly, I'm not even capping, would love to have purchased their makeup. But for me personally, I don't want to support a business that uses AI art, and I'll go more into it later. But when I see this, my heart hurts because it's literally like, man, you're a small business. The makeup looks good. I want to support you. It's just, I'm not a fan of AI art. But let's take a look at their pieces to showcase some of the AI art. If we scroll down their page, they have this palette called Snow Moon Palette, and it's labeled as a frosty masterpiece inspired by the serene elegance of the February moon. And the color payoff, it's a very like cool tone palette with some sort of shimmer colors in there as well as some like frosty colors. But look at the art that was used for the palette. And here on December 19th, there is a graphic that they put out. This was 1 week ago, and it writes, "Surprise, something magical is on the horizon. Meet the Little Sisters for a best-selling Cold Moon palette launching before the year's end. These celestial beauties are surprised, da da da." So anyways, these are the graphics that, this is the top one is the graphic for the Snow Moon palette, and the bottom one I'm guessing is going to be the graphic that will be used for the eyeshadow palettes for their sister palette. And we can clearly see that it's AI. It already has a really extreme AI vibe, but I always try to point out some other elements that would indicate that it likely is AI as well, just so that for people who aren't artists, maybe it will make a little bit more sense to you. But the most obvious one is for the top one, how the human ears goes beyond the bangs. It turns into elf ears. In case you don't know how elf ears work, and again, it's like a fantastical element, right? But it's not like human ear on the bottom, really long pointy elf ear on the top. It's like one or the other, you know? Like you either get the elf ears or you get the human ears, but you don't have both. So this is weird. And again, it's because in AI art, AI doesn't know the concept of object permanence. So if something goes behind another object, in this case, the ear goes behind the bangs, when it comes out the other side, AI fucks it up. It just always does. That's already one red flag. Two, it's kind of like the really kind of weird like hair pieces up here. My mouse is hovering over it. As you can see, it kind of looks like there's coral growing out of her head, but it doesn't necessarily make sense in the context of like a snow princess. So that to me is also giving AI art vibes as well. And then the bottom one is again looking extremely AI. We have wolves with like eyebrows down here, which is pretty funny. But yeah, this is definitely really giving AI. And another thing too that gives me a red flag is the fact that, and this is something that I do like of this brand, but when an artist actually makes the artwork, they tag the artist. So let me go down here. We have this piece, Happy Go Lucky Sneak Peek Alert, and they literally wrote illustration by Mara and then tagging them Hazel and Loon, where they're listed as like a clip art graphic designer, but that tag is not present in this piece. And let's look in the comment section of this post, right? You know, we have Beauty and a Scalpel writing, "Why are you all bothered with AI art? It's beautiful to me. Gets the job done. They're not obligated to find a human artist. It is a cost they don't want to spend, or maybe they're content with the artwork provided with AI. I'm really amazed you're focusing on that instead of the quality of the shadows." And that is a point that I will revisit later. And here we have Mestero writing, "I don't want to be rude or anything. It just truly baffles me. Is it so hard to find a human artist?" Metsuru, and I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing the name right, continues, "This AI stuff is so easily recognizable. It looks kind of lifeless. Not to say that almost every girl generated by AI art shares the same face, takes away from palette's identity." And Yanawa writes, "Very disappointed to see AI art." And Joanna writes, "I'm super excited, but I hope we can ditch the AI content and quote artwork, end quote. I've defended you in different different posts where people don't want to support your business because of it. And here is another post that Ensley made. This was on September 10th for their Underland palette, which looks like an Alice in Wonderland vibe, which again, this graphic is giving very, very AI art. I could just point out a couple of things. The floor is checkered, but the checkers are all kind of wonky. Again, typically if you have a human artist, they can draw a grid properly. The mushrooms sometimes just appear, right? Like you have all these mushrooms here, and then AI, I think, is kind of like unsure about mushrooms. So in some of the mushrooms, they don't have a stem. It's just the cap and then no stem. But it's not the type of mushroom that grows straight out of a tree that doesn't have a stem. You know, there are mushrooms like that. It's like they're trying to like kind of follow like a red capped mushroom, and then some just don't follow that at all. There's no stem. It just looks like it comes out of a tree. Because again, AI probably was like, hey, let's make mushrooms. And then, oh, we need to make a tree too. And they blended the two together. And then the very background here, we can see a whole bunch of kind of like twisting trees with no leaves. So it's just branches, but the branches from the right tree just intersect and grow straight into the branches of the left tree, which is pretty funny. And it's captioned, watch your step as you descend into the Underland, coming soon. And again, in the comments, we have people like Salmon writing, this looks like AI. Yuminatsu writing, no, I can't keep finding excuses anymore. And that graphic did end up being the cover of the palette. And then here they have their Flourish collection as well, which is a very highly, highly saturated, like kind of like pinks and blues and yellows, right? Like again, the fairy girl on the palette and the packaging is giving very AI vibes as well. And here is the actual graphic for it that was used, right? Where you kind of have this fairy girl in this style. And I mean, need I say more? This is again, very giving kind of AI art vibes. A big thing is like AI tends to make the different irises of the character different. And it's not like a difference that makes sense, right? Like some artists, obviously, like the iris will differ from one eye to the other by a little bit, depending on the perspective, depending on like the angle of the face, you know, the light hitting the eye, but it looks like two different eyes. And then, so we have Rose Nails writing, who is the cover artist? I love it. And Rose writes, I look through all the comments and I can't find an answer, but so many people have brought up AI, it has me worried. As an artist, I can't support if it is, but if not, you have my money. And people are asking, you know, like, is this AI generation? Who's the cover artist? What artist did you use for the cover art? And if we go back through their social medias, right, they have posts addressing AI art. They have this post on February 11th with a graphic that says, let's chat about AI. And it reads, we have returned from Gem and Jam Music Festival, where we had the joys of gifting products to many beautiful souls, spreading the love and beauty that Ensley Rain Cosmetics stands for. This festival offered the opportunity to seek out and engage with a wide variety of artists, those whose visions and styles resonate with the ethos of our brand. It was an opportunity to meet with potential collaborators, artists who might bring their unique talents and perspectives to future Ensley Rain projects. We're excited about the possibilities these new connections might bring, envisioning future collaborations that blend the worlds of beauty and art in ways we've only dreamed of. We've listened intently to your feedback and want to share our commitment to ethical creativity. The use of generative AI has revolutionized the way we can imagine and create, offering the ability to produce images in a myriad of styles that were once beyond our reach. Our journey with AI artwork has been one of exploration and discovery, allowing us to streamline our creative process and present you with the enchanting palettes you love. But let's address the elephant in the room. Edit. We recognize that the landscape of generative AI often navigates murky waters, with pre-existing images being used without proper attribution, consent, or fair compensation to the original creators. This is a concern we take to heart. To address this, we've been inspired by initiatives like Water Lily AI, which represents a beacon of hope for ethical practices within the AI art space. Programs like Water Lily AI ensure the original creators are compensated through micropayments when their styles influence the creation of new artworks. This means automated payments are made to artists whenever their unique styles are used to inspire new creations. We are thrilled to announce future projects we have in the pipeline that involve working directly with artists who rely solely on traditional methods without the use of AI. We are actively seeking additional artists to work with and appreciate any and all suggestions and recommendations you may have. Also, it says continued in comments, but like, not gonna lie, I can't find the comments. And then 2 days later, on February 13th, they had this post titled Seeking Artists. You know, writing the feedback and critiques from everyone who remained generally respectful in the comments have been invaluable, and for that, I'm truly grateful. That being said, we are actively seeking new digital illustrators and graphic designers to feature their art on our packaging on future products. If you know of platforms where you can connect with such talents, are an artist yourself, or have any recommendations for work that you love and feel fits our brand's aesthetic, please share with us here in the comments. Your input is immensely appreciated and helps us grow, evolve, and create more beautiful products for all of you guys to enjoy. As much as some of the comments have been difficult to read, and to be honest, at times have brought me to tears, I see an opportunity in supporting the opinions and values of others, growing as a human and brand, and would love the opportunity to financially support the artistic community that is being financially impacted by AI art. My intention intentions are to be honest and transparent about my artistic journey and processes and passions with you. And I believe I have now achieved that with full transparency. AI has served as a creative tool that has broadened my horizons as an artist in areas of illustration that I previously thought were beyond my capability. I've outlined the circumstance of its incorporation into our products, hoping to provide clarity. As our journey continues, fostering closer relationships with artists who would prefer traditional methods of art, we are eager to explore your recommendations and see what's possible as we push Ensley Rain into a more proactive future. So also, because they have this commitment to transparency about their usage of AI art, I went to their website to see if it was mentioned anywhere, just, in case people maybe didn't follow them on social media, on Instagram specifically, when that post was made and didn't see it. So under their FAQs, that was not mentioned anywhere from me looking. I do think it's interesting. There is a question of what does clean beauty mean for Ensley Rain Cosmetics? And so they list that they're committed to ethically sourcing all of their ingredients, making sure their employees are treated happily and fairly, and pride and transparency, which I love. Obviously, pay your employees fairly, source your ingredients ethically, but there is no mention of AI art here or, I guess, commitment for ethical use of artwork. And I looked at one of their palettes that looks to be also very reminiscent of AI art, the Twisted Tea Party palettes. And in the information below, there's no mention of that or AI art being used in the process at all, allegedly, again, right? Because this to me looks like AI art, but maybe it was not. So then looking at the Underland palette, right? So this palette here, it's eyeshadow palettes with 15 shades, right? And remember, the graphic was the Alice in Wonderland one we looked at that looks heavily reminiscent of AI artwork. As I scroll down here, again, there's no mention of AI art being used in the process or transparency about that. Now going into the ethics of, I guess, using AI art, especially if you are a small business. And I'm sorry, the lighting looks horrendous because the sun set. But to that, I would say a couple of points. So one, a lot of commenters were stating, hey, Ensley Rain is a small business. So therefore, as a small business, why are you guys coming for them for using AI art? It's easier, it's cheaper, allegedly, right? So let them do their own thing. Maybe they can't afford to get an actual artist. I have a couple of points about that. One, I would just say that I hope if you are a business that you would engage in ethical business practices, whether you are a small business or a large corporation, right? A lot of people are like, oh, why are you harping so much on a small business about their usage of AI art, but you're not doing the same for large businesses? And I would argue, no, I'm not saying this personally, right? But this is just to netizens on the internet. No, because netizens do harp on big corporations when they use AI art. Recently, there just was a Japanese multimedia group, Love Live franchise, and they allegedly used AI art in one of their graphics, and everybody on Twitter was unhappy about that. So, I think it's kind of just a general sentiment. A lot of people do not like AI art, so whether you are a small business or a big company, they're going to be upset nonetheless. So it's not like a single-handedly targeted attempt at small businesses for doing that. So that's my personal take. Secondly, so a lot of people were using the argument, hey, they're a small business, so therefore they probably don't make a lot of money. So therefore it's okay for them to cut corners financially. And whether you agree with a sentiment like that, oh, because you're a small business and because your profit margins are potentially less than a big corporation, that it's okay for you to then take ethical shortcuts. I would say, one, I do disagree with the sentiment. I think if it's in a position where you're not going to be absolutely homeless and can't pay the bills and feed yourself, right? This is cushion room you do have in your finances. I would hope you would choose the ethical route. I'm just going to use myself as an example, right? Look, I'm a full-time content creator. I have revealed my income. I may look I don't know. I haven't counted this year. I haven't kept track, but in previous years, it's anywhere between 175K to 200K in the last couple of years that I've made, right? Which is a fair amount of money. But I am one person. I'm not a corporation, right? So, there's many content creators who are in the same boat as me. And so when it comes to getting an editor, they could pay an editor what would be a fair wage for their country, but instead they will outsource editing to people overseas. They will hire editors from the Philippines or Malaysia, I don't know, right? Overseas countries where the income is much lower. And so they can get away with paying a low wage for the service. It would be, I guess, arguably potentially a reasonable wage in their country of origin, but you're getting a really good deal for what you're doing. If you're paying this editor $3 an hour and you live in Los Angeles, California, where the minimum wage is $16 per hour. That's minimum wage. That's not even counting paying for somebody's service and expertise that would increase the price. Is it legal for you to do that? Like, I guess technically, yes. Do I think personally that's ethical? I don't think so. So for me, with my editor, I pay him what is a fair wage in where I live, which is Los Angeles, California. I could have just been like, yeah, I'm gonna like pay you some shit wage, you know, and it's okay for where you live, but it's like low for me. But I personally don't like that. Does that impact my overall earnings at the end of the year? Yes, right? Because I would have saved and pocketed more money by doing this, by paying him less. I would not be able to sleep with myself at night. Like if I did that, I would feel really uncomfortable with doing that. So me personally, I think that if you are in a position where you have enough money to live what would be comfortable by your standards, I would say potentially it's greedy for you to then shortcut in like cut corners and stuff like that to save a buck or two. It is a different if you are in a situation where you desperately need money. I don't think you should scam people, but I could be more empathetic to that, right? And the second point that I will have to make as well, let's just take a look at their Underland palette. This is a $70 palette for 15 shades of pressed powder, okay? Now, there are things in this palette that would make it more expensive. Okay, one, again, the quality of the pigment, whatever, would increase the price. They do have fully colored illustration on the front cover that is AI art, but it's a full illustration that would increase the printing price by a little bit. Having a holographic text print on it would increase the printing price. How do I know this? I have not manufactured makeup, but I have used overseas manufacturers to manufacture products for a previous company that I've worked for and a business that I've had in the past. So while it was not makeup, it was products. So I know how these kind of like things work to an extent, right? And then, you know, like how the artwork is added because the packaging is fully printed, as in when you open it on the inside, it is also a full illustration printed on. That would increase the price a bit, you know, with like the way the text is printed on. And if we do go to their FAQs, they do list where their products are made. It says their eyeshadow palettes are crafted by a specialized third-party manufacturer in Shenzhen. Shenzhen is in China, and it is overseas manufacturers in China. So we can just kind of go on Alibaba. I do not know how their eyeshadows are made. I am only speculating based on my experience and with overseas manufacturers and stuff like that, okay? So this is speculation, but if they were to use an overseas manufacturer through a platform like Alibaba, which serves as a middleman, their manufacturer is overseas. They list their manufacturer as being from Shenzhen. We can look for eyeshadow palette. So over here, I just found a listing from this manufacturer called You Smile Cosmetic Commodity Co. Limited. And these are examples of some eyeshadow palettes. These palettes are larger actually than the one that Ensley Rain sells, right? These ones are a 18 shadow palette instead of a 15 shadow palette. And you can see here, hey, you know, this one is an eyeshadow palette with a printed illustration on the front. It is a different material. So theirs is cardboard, what looks like cardboard for theirs. This actually does look like plastic, which would increase the price a little bit. And you can see if you order 1,000 to 3,000 pieces, it's $3 per palette. Again, there are other costs built in. You're not counting for shipping costs, right? Eyeshadow palettes are heavy. Shipping from China overseas back into maybe the US, right? It would cost you maybe like $1,000 to ship that, like minimum. Shipping is very expensive when you ship overseas like that with such large quantities. Again, there's going to be other prices built into the eyeshadow palette that would increase the cost of it. So other things that would make the price higher would include things like packaging costs, photography for the listing photo, anything else in the packaging, like maybe they have like a thank you card they print out, that printing cost has to be built into it, the labor of packing and shipping the product. But I'm just using this to show you kind of an example of an eyeshadow palette that looks to have both shimmers and matte pressed powders with a full printed illustration on the front. And we can kind of see the ballpark of how the price would look like. So here is another eyeshadow palette, right? This is from the same company, but this one is a larger palette. So this palette is 24 eyeshadows. It's again a cardboard case with a mirror built in as well. The mirror would increase the price. And this is for 2 to 9 pieces. It would be $669 USD. For more than 10 pieces, $668 USD per eyeshadow palette. And then another example we can use is Jeffree Star and their eyeshadow palettes. Look, okay, so you can love and hate Jeffree Star. This is not a thing about him as a person. It's strictly off of his makeup brand, okay? I'm using him as an example because he did a series with Shane Dawson about making an eyeshadow palette, so he did go into a little bit about the manufacturing costs, whatever, and he stated that he does want to have more elaborate packaging to increase the luxury feel of it, of the product. So his packaging is going to be probably the most expensive packaging out of any eyeshadow palette, really, that we've seen, with the exception of potentially a brand like Flower Nose. And you can see here, this is a larger palette. This is an 18 clean eyeshadow palettes with some shimmers. It's mainly matte colors, right? Then his palette is $52. This is like a twofold thing because with a larger brand like Jeffree Star, because they're selling such large quantities, the larger quantity you order of products to sell, the lower the individual unit cost would be. So if Jeffree Star ordered like 50,000 of these eyeshadow palettes, it might have cost him like $8 per palette, $9 per palette. Whereas a small business might only be able to order 100, 200, 300. And because they're ordering a much smaller quantity, then the price would be higher per unit. So maybe for the exact same product, it might cost a small business like $13, $14, $15 per pallet for them to buy it. And then they would, increase the price to make money. The reason why I'm going through all of this is just to indicate to you that I really don't think Ensley Rain is broke. Because a lot of people are like, they're a small business, they probably don't make a lot of money. $70 for an eyeshadow palette with 15 colors in it is high, is a lot. And don't get me wrong, the quality of the eyeshadow palettes look really good, right? Like in the swatches that makeup MUAs have done. An eyeshadow palette like this, a per unit cost of the eyeshadow palette, I would imagine is no more than $15 per palette USD for it to manufacture. Again, I'm saying, right, there are going to be other costs built into it that we don't see. The cost of the product photography, the cost to pay the model, right, whose arms you're using in the photo, the cost to pay for shipping, the labor cost to pack the items, the web hosting cost, right, the cost to upkeep your website and to pay for the domain. All of that would increase the price. Actually, they use a free domain though because they use a .myshopify.com domain. But yeah, so my point is I, again, can be sympathetic if you're like a small business out of like, you're 18, freshly out of high school, and you're in your parents' house and you just started like a jewelry brand that you make the jewelry yourself and you use some AI art. I still would hope you choose not to. But one, if you're 18, you're probably like, young, you maybe didn't occur to you yet. But secondly, again, I could be much more sympathetic because you literally probably made $5 from your business. This business is not broke. When people are online defending them with the language of they don't make enough money, they most definitely make enough money to pay artists ethically. Now, the second point that I will have to make, and I'm sorry, that was a very, very long-winded ramble, is that art is a luxury. And so if you can't afford said luxury, then you should not go through unethical means to get the luxury. Does that make sense? You're not going to die without art. And also, you don't need it. They are a makeup brand, but they don't need to put art on their packaging. If you guys know of Morphe, Morphe is a makeup brand. I have some of their palettes. Here's an example of some of their eyeshadow palettes. It's literally a graphic and words on it. That's it. And that's like being generous. Most of their palettes that I have, yeah, see, look, it's literally one color with text. Look at this one. One color, text. Some of their eyeshadow palettes, it's straight black plastic with one word on the top, and it just says Morphe, or in this case, it's just a bunch of M's. And people buy Morphe because the product is good. It's cheap, it's affordable, and the eyeshadow quality is good. So you don't need to go the art route, right? Now, some people make the argument, oh, but maybe it's like because they're a small business, they want to do anything they can to stand out. So therefore, AI art is, I guess, the conclusion they arrived at. And I would again say you don't need that, right? With makeup at the end of the day, like largely it's the quality of the makeup that seals the deal. And from the photos and stuff like that, it looks like the pigment payout is really good. So that on its own would already tell the story. You don't need to go and add AI art to it. Also, third, in my opinion, it's more egregious to use AI art for commercial stuff like makeup packaging because now you're profiting off of the stolen artwork and likeness of others' arts that they could not consent to. And you're profiting off of it. Again, I am not a fan of AI art, but I would say it's a lot less egregious if you used some AI art and you made, I don't know, your fucking Twitter profile photo. Like, not great. Don't do that ideally. It's not that bad compared to a case where you made the AI art the packaging of your product and you're promoting your product using this AI art. The AI art steals the likeness of other people's artworks, that people who could not consent to it. So you're profiting off their art's likeness without them even knowing. And I would say the final point is it's just a poor business move also. If you completely remove the ethical points that I was making throughout this video about the ethics of AI art, right? I just think it's a poor business decision to be using AI art in a makeup brand like this, because their whole makeup brand, their whole shtick is really bright, fun colors and bright, shiny glitters. What does that target? That typically targets a more artistic demographic, right? It does target a casual makeup user sometimes, but the casual makeup consumer doesn't really gravitate towards eccentric and bold colors, which is typically what Ensley Rain sells, right? Not your like daily person who is an accountant who wants to do some makeup to look cute at work, okay? Most likely the people who gravitate towards those bold, shiny buying colors are people who are artists or artistic or creative in some regard, right? So they have some creativity running through them. They are likely artists or have some sort of artistic pursuits. And again, it's also because makeup is an art form on its own. So again, it would lean to having more artists. And if you just look at it from a business perspective, you ostracize such a large consumer base by using AI art, because anybody, or not anybody, but a lot of artists are really into bold, colorful makeup, which is what Ensley Rain sells. A lot of artists don't like AI art and therefore will not want to support and purchase things that use AI art in the process. So you lose all of that as your customer base essentially by using AI art. It's just for me, if you look at it from a business perspective, it is just a very odd hill to die on, because you could just hire an artist, pay them the commercial licensing fee to use their art on your products, and then everyone is happy. The amount of money you would make from sales from people who like art, those people that really wanted to buy your stuff but chose not to due to your use of AI art, you would make so much more money back. Seriously. And also, you don't ostracize the people who like AI art also. Like, the people who are okay with you using AI art in your packaging would purchase your makeup whether there was or was not AI art on it. But you would gain such a large customer base by just not using the AI art. So if we completely throw and ignore the ethics of AI art and why the argument of AI art is bad, ethically speaking, in my opinion, it's just a poor business practice to use it. You are losing a lot of potential customers by doing it. So we have the ethical argument and we also have the business argument. So at the end of the day, I'm curious about what your thoughts are. I don't want you guys to go attack Ensley Rain. At the end of the day, they are a small business. They can do whatever they want, right? And I am also allowed to make my little think pieces on YouTube about it. But I just wanted to cover this because one of you guys brought it up to me. And I just thought it was a very interesting thing that we could talk about. They're not the only one, not the only small business who have used AI art in their processes. So this is just kind of like my thinking and feelings about a situation like this and me unpacking it for you guys. So I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And again, apologize for the poor lighting in my room. The power's finally back, but I've been filming for 40 minutes, so the sun is long gone now. But in my future videos, the lighting will be better. I promise. I will try my best. Also, I have an Etsy shop where I sell digital goods and assets on there for Twitch streamers, and I still have some free ones on my Ko-fi and also stream on Twitch. Bye.